patriots and obedient vassals. Sorry, we didn't have our normal intro there, but hey, we're here nonetheless. Good to see all y'all.
It's a communist.
Oh, I tell you, what a hassle we've had. The technical snafus over here have been something else, but
no problem.
yeah, we're up and going.
Hey,
Never
Patriots.
say die. We're gonna give it a couple minutes, let folks pop into the room. Sure has been one beautiful spring day. Let me tell you what. Holy cow, I'm really getting spring fever now. I had a
Cool.
beautiful sun out today, nice and warm. A bunch of birds starting to pop in. Those spring birds are coming back north. Pretty cool stuff.
It is.
Actually, pretty warm
Spring has
stuff.
sprung, dudes
Indeed.
and dudettes. Yeah.
So, yeah, I'll give it a couple minutes, let folks pop in the room. Got all kinds of things going on here this week, and some updates from the rally or the lobby day up at the State House. Had a good time there, good group of people.
We sure
I
did
think
lobby, didn't we?
I think it was one of the largest lobby days they've had up there. How y'all hearing me? Am I coming through loud and clear out there? Let's see some ones if we're coming through good, some twos if we're not so good, some threes if it's really weak. I want to make sure we got a good audio stream and everyone can hear us here tonight. How you hearing us? All right? Okay. Hey, how you doing, Dennis? Good to see you, brother. Cheryl, how are you? Mickey,
Hey.
howdy do. Multicasting here tonight. We're streaming live on Facebook and at ipmnation.com
That's right.
/Red Pill Politics. They got the show archive there, audio on demand. Be sure to share around the IPM Nation site as well. Want to try to get out on as many platforms as we can. Got a new YouTube page up. We'll share that link with you in a little bit.
How about that, man?
Yeah. You know, something never happens with Facebook. We just, we'll start streaming there. Something happens there. We're going to be switching over. We're going to have our own website up pretty soon. So
We are.
Yeah, it'll be a full-time archive. So no matter what platforms,
That's right.
try to wipe us out, we're going to keep, pushing the information somehow, some way. So stay connected where you can. Looks like we're getting a bunch of ones. All right, excellent, good deal.
Amen.
We're slowly messing around with things, trying to get the sound and everything tweaked. But if you notice, I put up a link on my personal page earlier in the week, and there's a whistleblower who used to work for Facebook, came out and was talking about how things are getting filtered. And literally, the words that I say here, certain words may actually get picked up by their filters, and they immediately throttle you down. They start messing with your audio. Things get interrupted, and streams are interrupted, and that's all software. There's not even warm-blooded, people behind this all the time. Sometimes, it's just the software. It picks up a keyword, and it's just one of those words that they've decided to filter out, and they do. They cut your bandwidth. So, I'm going to try to recognize what those those words are. They cut your bandwidth, not to not to say any of them, because I do want our information to get out there.
Correct.
So I'm not going to hold back, but at the same time, I'm not going to. We just got to be careful about the words we use. I don't want to trigger any of the filters. We'll do the best we can.
Mickey says, hello, Cindy and Dave. I can hear you loud and clear tonight.
Good deal.
Amen.
Went through and
Thank
kind of basically started right from scratch here and redid the audio. So hopefully it's getting better. We got some new mics coming in pretty soon. But yeah,
Hey, Slider.
we tweaked that and kind of streamlined things. So hopefully it's getting better. We apologize for the snafus, but
Hi, Dennis.
we'll give you a full refund. Dennis, good to see you. Slider, welcome to the room.
Yeah.
Ian, good to see you.
Evie. Wow.
All right, we're let's see what we got going on here. First of all, quick update. The
Cheryl.
pro-family lobby day up at the State House.
Wow.
That was
Hey,
a
Gina.
really good event. The
Hey,
folks
Lori.
over at the Massachusetts Family Institute
What a day.
did a really good job. They had some nice lobby packets together. People knew right when they showed up. They got their name tag on their paperwork, showed them right who their representatives were, where their
And
office
they're
was.
senators.
Yep, and it was very well done.
And where do we stop first?
First, we stopped over at the church, and it was really nice
I mean,
historical.
lobbying. Yeah, it was a beautiful church. And
Yeah, and there had to have been every bit of 500 people there, so that was kind of good to see.
I learned why it was called Beacon Hill. That's for another time.
Yep.
Anyway, what is the first office we stopped at?
The first office we stopped at was Governor Baker,
That's right.
and
Was he in?
yes, in hiding.
Yeah.
So yeah, he wouldn't even come out. You know, here's a group of, although it was a pro-family thing, it wasn't really tied to any particular party, but you know, there was a lot of Republican and more conservative constituents there, and you would have thought that if 500 plus of his constituents came out, that he would at least come out and give the common dignity of at least greeting the people, and he didn't even do that. Sent a couple of staffers and lackeys out there, collect paperwork. That's about it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So shame on Governor Baker for hiding in the back room there.
Home but hiding.
You know, not surprised. Most of the progressives in the State House were
Home but hiding.
running for their cry closets that day. I know my rep was in the meeting. I tried to stop in and see Senator Goby. Boy, she just missed me too. She ducked into the conference room with somebody.
She slid past us with a friend or something, and just right after we were done talking to her aide at the desk.
Yeah, I think.
Wow, it was so obvious.
Well, and he got a tiny but exciting piece of my mind too. So, but really good day.
Yeah, it
good
was a
event.
great day.
They had buses set up to help people get there from all across the state. So it was a really good time, and got to do some networking too. You know, we met some new friends on the bus.
We did.
A really cool thing. I was sitting there at the end of the day. I was waiting for you. And I'm sitting there having a soda there by the cafeteria, and this young kid comes up to me.
I missed that, dang.
Yeah, he must have been around, I don't know, maybe 12, 13 years old. He says, "Are you that red pill politics guy?" And I said, "Well, yes, I am." I shook his hand, introduced myself, and turns out he's been to Camp Constitution a few times.
Sweet.
He's been up to Lobby Day, so he's
Wow.
there's one of those young people
Come on now.
who's engaged,
Yeah.
and for me that kind of charges my batteries when you see a young person who's
all is not lost.
into it. So that was really cool. There's a
Gives
lot of
you
young
hope.
people involved in Lobby Day as well.
You bet. It was a
for the
good
money.
day.
Yeah, you're
Very
right,
good day.
John. He's in for the money and whatever promotions he can get, and promotions for his friends. Absolutely. So yeah, Lobby Day was a great success. I hope that the folks that went don't think that we can just do a trip out there and that's it. Everything's going to correct itself. It's not the way it works. You got to follow up with phone calls. You got to go to their local offices.
I have a thought.
Do you? Share it.
Yeah. 500 people, maybe intimidating, I think we should show up unawares. Okay?
Yeah, it makes. I mean, I'm sure they were expecting the
Unprepared,
group, so
unplanned, and then find them sitting in their office. Okay.
yeah, absolutely, and camp out right there if they're in the meeting. Meetings have beginnings and ends, so.
Oh yeah, and if you have to hit them standing in the lobby, it's why it's called lobbying.
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
Okay.
So it was a good event. People gonna have to keep
was a very
pushing.
good
Though
event.
there's some bad stuff going on.
Oh, the bills.
You stop by and take a look at Mass Family Institute's website. They got a really good breakdown of what's going on, and you can only categorize this as a blatant, in-your-face attack on the family. The counseling ban,
The very fabric of the family.
the language that
These bills are sick.
and I told you there was a deluge coming, and it is. I highly recommend you go to the state's website, all right, and you can do a search and it lists out all the bills. They're the ones that are popular, the ones that are most recently active.
Thanks, Chad.
And then you can search them all.
Yep.
All right. Do a search for, say, gender. All right. Do a search for gender and look at how many bills come up where they are trying to regulate and create a never-ending tethers. And I'm telling you, they're creating a mess. I've seen bills where these little commies get out there and talk about, there was one, for example. They want to try to diversify every committee, board, commission, in every level of government, in your town government, state government, every layer of government has got to have a makeup that is correlates with the races and genders of their district.
Blink, blink.
Yeah, blink, blink is right. In the beginning of this proposed bill by this numbnut, and I got to go back and look this up and share it with everyone. It's amazing. They're creating a quagmire that they just don't realize. In the first half of this bill, they say every single board, commission, or anything has to have at least 50% women.
Hey, Daniel.
All right.
Yeah.
The gender female, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then later on in the bill, they insist that this board be made up of all the different races and genders. Now, as I understand it, what, 50, 60,
Please.
70 genders they've now labeled themselves with?
Hey, John.
How can you be at 50% or greater female and then have a makeup of a board that is diversified into all these genders and races and everything? I mean, it's hypocritical in the language of the bill. So I'm not sure who's going to decide what is a valid gender, but they're creating an absolute mess. Plug in the word sustainability and look and see what you get. Whole lot of little tiny snippets of Agenda 21.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But I was debating with someone online. They didn't agree when Trump sweeped a little bit more property from private control into federal government control in the preserves. I don't agree with that.
Well, stay tuned.
Well, the federal government really, post roads, post offices, forts and ports, 10 miles square, that's about it. That's all the federal government's supposed to have. Well, they control 80% of some of the states out there.
Educate me on it.
Well, look at the BLM. Great big federal level land trust.
Bureau of Land Management.
We know they're willing to steal property from ranchers. We know they're willing to use the Utah State Police and the FBI and shoot them dead in the snow. All right, this is the BLM. Well, we got local level land trusts that are every bit as aggressive. But here's what's happening. They got a bill, and Trump supported this, is putting a bunch of land into conservation, and I disagreed. And there was a woman who said, oh, no, this is all about, protecting land and conserving. And I said, well, yeah, but, I argued that I think those that have the vested interest in the private property owners themselves, have a vested interest and are the best caretakers of the land. And then I went on to find examples where, like, a local land trust will get a grant and buy up land in your town, and then turn around and sell it to National Autobahn, which is legal to do. And then they start out saying, oh, we're not going to develop, or, we want to protect this land from ever being developed. And then they get a grant, they encumber the property, wipe out the development rights with a deed restriction, and then they turn around and sell it to a bigger organization like National Autobahn. National Autobahn is not a domestic agency or corporation or nonprofit or anything. It's international. So you can see how it can go from private control to international control pretty darn quick. And to keep it real and to keep it local, I went and found a bill. It's out east a little bit more. There's a town that's been pulling land into DCR care and custody, Department of Conservation and Recreation. So they've been absorbing and buying up land. And now there's a bill pending currently right now for the Department of Transportation to allow them to purchase from Department of Conservation a tract of land. Now, what does the Department of Transportation do? Well, they're the Agenda 21 facilitators and stakeholders for transit corridors. All right, we just had here, right in next door in Palmer, this week, we had a visioning session about a transit line, all right, a commuter line to go from Palmer out to Boston, and I'll bet you dollars to donuts, the same creatures that are trying to grab this land out east a little bit more and go from conservation land to Department of Transportation, it's these same transportation knuckleheads that are down here doing visioning sessions right in our backyard. So you can see conservation 1 minute, off limits, you vassals can't develop, but hey, you know what? As soon as the Department of Transportation wants to put in one of their transit corridors, start plopping some smart growth along that, maybe some bike lanes for bikes that don't exist to rail trails that people don't go on. It's unbelievable. And all you got to do, it's all around you. You're awash in it. Most of us don't go and look at the bills that are being proposed. Hundreds, even thousands of them. You got to go look for yourself to believe it. But yeah, good example, good local example. And we finally brought her around. There were a couple others that were advocates of private property control. And, that discussion played out civilly. And the examples are numerous. There's no shortage of examples where government tries to take over this control. And I remind you, what makes America unique, it is not our military. It is the thing that makes us unique amongst the nations of the world, other than being a constitutional republic, is that we have the unfettered right to own property. And the one who owns and controls that property can extract the wealth from it. So think about it. When you have a big U.S. Forest Service that comes in and wants to push this forest legacy program, and they start out saying that the majority of land is in private control, and then say we'd like to decentralize the control of our forests. Normally, when we hear that word decentralize, we think they're decentralizing a top-down government thing. They're talking about decentralizing, separating private people from their private property. So, great big hoax. You got to read between the lines with these creatures.
Wow.
Unfreaking believable.
You make it easy to understand.
It's kind of not. You got to dig into it and look at all the things. I mean, I've had a lot of people a lot smarter than me explain this stuff, and there's a lot of reading. But
complicated, but you make it.
Yeah, and that's good. We got to get other people to do that.
Does it take practice?
It does. It takes a lot of reading and whatnot. But boy, once you get your mind around it and you understand how it works, it becomes easier and easier to explain to people how that's happening.
Who do we have for our guest interview?
Oh, a good friend of mine. I met Deputy Sheriff William Ferguson a couple of years ago.
Already?
Yeah, it's been a couple of years already now. We had a series of big storms that hit the country, one down in Texas.
Yeah.
They got nailed by. So we were up here taking up collections of storm supplies, and a local trucker over at Foster Hill Transport, my good friend Randy, stepped up to truck this stuff down there.
Huge help.
He was a connection I made through Jeanette Finicum, because I reached out to Jeanette. I saw that she was busy down in Texas at the time this storm was hitting, and I told her that we want to get some stuff down there, but we don't want the Red Cross and FEMA to be stopping our convoys, pillaging all this stuff, bringing it to their central location, do a little photo op.
So she was a conduit.
And then let it rot in the sun. So, yeah, I asked her if we could locate a nice, safe place to drop our supplies, a church or a warehouse or something, somewhere that was just outside of the city, because that's where everyone goes to the heart of the city when the prostitutes are there with their cameras and they do their photo op, and they actually just take off and leave. There's still people in the outskirts there, not too far away, up to their asses in water. And, they need the help too, not just those in the city centers. So we went just outside of the cities. Jeanette helped us with the targeting of drop sites, and she hooked us up with Deputy Sheriff William Ferguson.
Sugar Land, Texas.
Yep, I gave Mr. Ferguson a call, let him know that we were very adamant about getting these supplies down there, but into the hands of the people that needed them.
Right.
And he actually escorted our convoys as they came across the state line.
Important.
He had everything, all the logistics lined up, and he ushered these loads right into where they belong.
Praise
They made
God.
it exactly where we wanted them
Right.
to.
Amen.
It was
Remember.
great teamwork, and I really, really appreciate his help. And he's been doing great things ever since. I've been keeping an eye on that boy, and he is constantly helping people. I mean,
I know. It's
every
true.
week you see him post a live stream. Right now he's out there. I think he's just coming back. He's going to be calling in probably as he comes in for the night on the road.
Should be calling in a few minutes.
Yep,
Yeah.
half past the hour he'll be calling in. But
Correct.
yeah, what a great guy. I really enjoyed talking and working with him.
So he was up in Fremont, Nebraska.
Yes, yeah, and they're having some serious flooding issues
The
up
farmers, the cattle, the horses.
there. Yep. I remember we sent
Wow.
probably close to a ton of animal food when we did this out there for them. We had a big outpouring of help.
Including horse feed. I
Yeah,
remember
horse
that.
feed.
Bags of it.
One of the
That was
other
really
things
important.
was Benadryl, things like that. People were getting eaten alive by skeeters, the poisonous snakes in the water down there.
Awful.
And Benadryl is one of the things to help when people get bit by snakes. So, yeah, that. And on both ends, the people up here that gave was impressive. You know, they didn't know the people this stuff was going to. They were never going to see them. They would probably never be thanked by them. But people just came together. They donated, and they donated big. And, I've got to thank everybody that's involved.
Hey,
Those
that was our first date.
Yeah, that is the
That
first.
was our first. That was our first.
Yep.
That was our first date. Yeah.
Yep, I do remember that.
You
But
want to come help me? No, I consider it a date because it was all day.
yeah, and look at what happened.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, so it was
No, I'm just kidding.
good time by all, and very inspiring. The people that gave, the people that donated time to transport,
Amen.
and it was all
Yeah.
worth it when
Boy, do we work our little fannies
Mr.
off.
Ferguson showed those videos of that stuff landing.
Yeah, it was
I don't know
nice to
how
see.
many dog pounds in places like that were desperate for food. That's always the first stuff that gets destroyed. You know, when there's a flood like that,
Yep.
stockpiles of food get wet and they're gone. But we rolled in there with a trailer full of animal food, and these people we were just so thankful.
I'm just glad it got to where it needed to be.
Yep.
Instead of
It's a shame we got to think of that stuff. You got
getting
to
messed
actually
up by the Red Cross.
You got to protect your supplies from the system that's in place to actually help people. Will step in and prevent others from helping. It's unbelievable. Like what we talked about
Believe it or
before with,
not.
DCF. These people
Yeah.
are there to help kids, and now we're finding out that the last, that audit showed us 118 of them were raped and sexually abused, never reported. All right?
Awful.
This is a system dedicated to helping kids. It doesn't think raped kids is something to report to law enforcement. It's current policy right now, by the way, which we're going to try to change. What else we got coming up? I'm going to start doing, I'm going to mention this right now so anyone who's listening who might have missed the primer earlier, is we want to start doing a segment here on Red Pill Politics each week called the Patriot Calendar. And it's just kind of like what I have been doing informally, kind of telling people what events and things are coming up. But help me, I can't know everything that's going on. So as the listeners out there in Massachusetts area, as you're become aware of Patriot events that are going on, trainings, anything like that, let me know. I'd really like to help put the word out there where I can. No guarantees, though. You come up to me, if I don't like what you're doing, if you're an establishment politician just pushing the flavor of the day, I'm pretty much going to tell you to go pound sand and not a peep will be heard. But you got a good cause and you're trying to right the ship. I want to include your events on the Patriot
Amen.
Calendar. Here's
Amen.
just a couple that are coming up. First,
Tell me.
Red Pill Expo. That's going on
I can't wait.
June 7th to June 9th.
Wow.
Really hoping to get there. I'm trying to make arrangements right now to get us there, the registration, and
Where is it?
also it's right in Connecticut,
All
Hartford,
right.
Connecticut, actually, this year at the
Thank you.
XL Center right in Hartford.
Amen.
So Red Pill Politics wants to be a present there, looking to get a vending table, get ourselves registered here pretty quick, which is
Yes.
why we're doing our
What do
little
you got?
raffle. Remember
What do you
that,
got?
folks? Don't you forget. We got an autographed pair of Sheriff Joe pink prison underwear right there for all y'all.
Very
And
fashionable.
anyone who makes a donation to the effort, $20 or more, is going to get entered into drawing to win those autographed Sheriff Joe pink underwear.
Sexy.
Isn't it, though? Can I get you to model them next week for us?
Jeepers, you're gonna have to do a lot of dishes.
It might be worth it seeing you some pink Sheriff Joes. So yeah,
Okay.
if you anyone wants to help
Like I
out,
said.
support the show, that's kind of where our efforts are going. Donation is going to go to help get us in there. Red Pill Expo and big Constitution Party board meeting going on.
Hey.
That's coming around right around the corner in May. You know.
Oh yeah. Hey, Slider says he would like to be a guest. What do you think?
Oh yeah, Slider's got it going on. He's out there fighting the New World Order. I'll tell you, we'll get you on, brother. You
All
pick a
right.
subject, that 5G stuff. I've been looking into that, and I've seen some of your posts on that.
Yeah.
So let's talk on that.
Oh.
Camp Constitution, my buddy Hal Shurtleff doing a great camp. And, like hearing that young man up at the State House this
Look
week.
at that.
Hal's efforts are not going unnoticed.
11 years.
Yep. Camp Constitution.
imagine that.
That's the 11th one, and that's going on Sunday, July 28th to Saturday, August 3rd.
That's right.
And
It's a
that's-
week.
Yep, Lakeside Christian Campground in Pittsfield.
Gorgeous.
Now-
Gorgeous setting.
It's kind of a kids camp, but it's also a family camp. So you parents out there,
Oh, families are
don't
welcome.
feel left out in this. If you want to do this as a family event and you go yourself and bring your kids, please do, because that is what this is for. If you like, you can, just sign your kids up for it.
Right.
And I'll repeat again, there's some kids out there whose parents just don't have the financial means to be able to just send their kid away to a nice camp
You can
like that.
sponsor a child.
Absolutely. If you have the opportunity, please look into that and give Hal Shurtleff a call. And Hal's more than happy to work with you on this stuff. Okay.
Absolutely.
We just want
Good
it
man.
full. There shouldn't be an empty seat, an empty cot there. We want to see that place full.
I don't think there ever is.
No, it was a pretty good group last year.
Right.
Red Pill Politics, we're going to be up there again. I'm not sure what day we're going to be doing a show, but we will be filming and doing a live show from Camp Constitution.
Right.
This will be our third year.
Wow.
So
Will
good
be my
stuff
second,
there.
Your third.
Yep. Second Amendment rally. That also is coming right around the corner.
Oh my God, that's our big deal.
Yep. This is something we have so much fun there. This is one of those things that I really look forward to every year. It's got it's like a family reunion for me. All my buddies I haven't seen in so long.
From 10 to 6, 10
Yeah.
a.m. to 6 p.m. A little,
Yeah.
give or take.
Yeah, it's an all-day event. Oh, and where's my calendar? Did you take here my calendar over here? About that, I asked one of the officers up there. They were talking about getting the site ready and everything. This year's rally is going to be at the Century Sportsman's Club, and that's in
Century.
Auburn, Massachusetts.
Century.
That's what I said.
You said century.
That's what. Yeah.
Century.
My ears aren't hearing a difference. April 28th
Hey,
is
Galen, what's up?
cleanup day. All right, it's Earth Day cleanup day they have up there at the what club now? Say it again.
Century.
Century.
Right.
Did I say it right?
Yes.
Okay. Century Sportsman's Club in Auburn, Mass.
Another gorgeous setting.
April 28th. So all you guys out there got chainsaws, backpack blowers, string trimmers, things like that. Let's load up and head out there. I'll post a little event page. I'm going to go out and spend the day with them too.
There's a little lake there.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
Yeah, it's a nice one. Oh, and you know what else? I was just talking to one of the committee organizers today who was a member over at the club, and they've got a volunteer at the club who is committed to kids events all day long. This is one of those things that I've been griping about for years.
Okay, that's a first for us.
Got to get the young ones involved. Yeah, so if you got any ideas, share them with us. Go over to the rally page and post up your ideas. We're looking for some fun things to do with the kids. They're talking about everything from fishing derbies to building bird houses, archery, doing a little archery and stuff. So a whole day of kids events, and really grateful to have one of the guys there from the club step up to volunteer to do that. And I want to try to get him some help if we can too. So if you all have any ideas, because this is your rally, I'm just the instigator.
It is your rally.
Yep, and make sure you get them over to us at the page and post that up there. It's going to be another good one. I have such a good time every year at that event.
Lots of really awesome raffles.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Always good raffle stuff.
I can't partake in any of it. Dang
nope,
it.
You cannot. But here, I'm going to post the site up there for you. Those folks that are listening on IPM Nation, if you stop over to the 6th Annual Flag Day Second Amendment Rally page on Facebook, you will find a whole plethora of information.
Ooh.
There's another big word, and I pronounced that one right.
You did.
There's hope for me. There's hope. So, yeah, check that out. Get involved on the 28th if you can. We're going to do a little cleanup party. One of the things we're still looking for is I want to make sure there's plenty of cover. We got spoiled the last couple of years. It's unusual to find this, but it had a huge circus tent. It just took care of everybody. Now we're on the lookout again, so we're trying to piece together enough good-sized canopies. Regardless of what the weather is, if it's rainy, we want people dry, and if it's beautiful out, can't really bake in the sun either. So we need a little shade.
We do.
Yeah, if anyone's got a line on some good canopy or pop-up type stuff, let me know. That's one of the things we haven't quite got down yet. The heck else we got going on?
We have a lot of things going on.
Yeah, well, the rally, that is getting to that point where that's going to wind up consuming a lot of my time every year, about.
That's natural.
Yeah, we got to get moving here. There were several gun clubs in Massachusetts that kind of joined on board with a lawsuit, against all this gun control stuff. So I think I'm going to be giving each of them a free quarter-page ad, just because this is we are under attack on the Second Amendment too, every bit as bad as the families are. So
we are.
Yep.
We so are.
We may have another event coming up. Our local committees that are working on the pedophile stuff. We've really been digging and finding some interesting things.
You're on the phone a lot.
Well, and I hate my phone. I really do. I've come to hate that thing.
No, you don't.
But I want to show some of the stuff that when we started digging into this and looking to see what the connections were, we want to know how.
Hi, D.
We got a couple of really bad characters.
Yeah.
These sex offenders are very deviant, very clever, and we got one who is among the most troublesome. Is a former attorney. He's been disbarred now, but no less crafty. And here's what we found: is I was snooping around on the registry of deeds site because I know this guy owns a lot of property. You see, and
we have to pause.
What we got here? So I'm going to put this aside for now, but I'm going to come back to it before the end of the show. There's some interesting patterns I want to share with the audience, and I want to make sure that you know how you can go in your own neighborhood and track down this stuff yourself. I do believe we now have our guest interview on the line with us, Mr. Deputy Sheriff William Ferguson from Texas. Deputy Sheriff Ferguson, are you there and can you hear me?
Hi, sir.
I am here. How are you, sir?
Oh, so good to hear your voice again. We did a quick little introduction earlier on how we met there at the storm down in Texas. We were sending some relief stuff, and you provided a priceless service for us up here as we did not want to see our loads get confiscated, misdirected, rot in the sun anywhere, and you helped us put them right in the hands of the people that needed it most. So I first want to thank you again for helping us out at that capacity. That was awfully nice of you and very characteristic of you. You seem to be pretty busy in your civic outreach down there.
Thank you, Sheriff Ferguson.
Sure, love everything you guys have done for Texas and beyond. And you set a high bar for us. And as you know from our conversation the other day, I am returning from Nebraska, Fremont, Nebraska. We have been delivering them supplies since their terrible flood that they've suffered, the ranchers and farmers and some of the city folks there in the smaller towns that have really suffered from high water. And because of what you did with us, we could not help but go to Nebraska. So you set a high bar.
Oh, amen.
Wow. Well, you certainly are busy. I don't think you broke stride since we talked to you there, since our project. You kept right on going.
We've been watching.
That is true. I'm so glad if you were able to watch some of our live feed videos that we did. And so many people have benefited from the simple love and generosity of, stranger Americans that I call we're all community and family. We're just separated by a couple thousand miles.
That's all. Wow.
Amen. Thank you so much.
Let's do a little follow-up. This happened a couple of years ago, this storm, and many times when relief is sent out and immediately in the wake of these events, the press is always there to capitalize on that. But the pattern is usually when the press goes away, a lot of the attention goes away, and people who are still in dire straits are still in dire straits. Things like mold, and there's all kinds of issues that follow after the immediate physical crisis of the storm. Tell me, how long did it take, or is it still going on, as people are repairing their lives, their families, and their property? How is that progression going?
Well, let me say this so that people will understand the expanse of the damage that Hurricane Harvey caused to our region. There was some 78,000 homes that suffered from flooding. So that'll give you a picture of how concentrated our communities are and how much water fell. Just in one area of Harris County, we received 52 inches of rain in just a matter of a day or two.
Wow.
And it just overwhelmed all of our reservoirs. So in response to your question, there are still many that are recovering from Harvey. And if I may challenge each one of your listeners to prepare themselves for that day. Prepare themselves, whether it's a flood or a fire, prepare themselves. Because so many people were caught without cash in their bank. So when their home was washed away, it was very, very difficult for them to recover because they were required then to fall back on federal agencies and local and state and agencies that, are clearly not responsive to one family because they're looking at a broader picture of 78,000 homes. And so I really, it hurts my heart when I see a family that their front yard looks beautiful. They allow you into their home and they still do not have carpet. They still do not have appliances. They still do not have furniture except what a neighbor gave them. They still do not have beds. And here it is nearly 2 years later.
Wow.
We are still delivering beds to empty bedrooms because they did not have flood insurance. So these people are having to recover on their own while paying a house note with no ability to pay for the essentials or the things that we call essentials, such as a couch or an oven.
Wow.
And those are the things we still provide to our flood victims as we find them. And The American man and woman, here's what I've learned. Our middle class Americans are such a beautiful people because they have a sense of pride and a desire to work, but it's very difficult for them to ask for help. And so they literally will make everything look fine, but behind the curtain, they're really hurting. And the only way you find them is you become their friend. You seek them out, and you will find them. And they're just beautiful, beautiful people. They do not rely on anyone but themselves, and they struggle to ask for help.
Yeah, you know, I kind of noticed that myself. Those folks are kind of quiet, and you know, their pride does get in the way a little bit. They need the help.
It does.
You know, and they probably are thinking that there's a lot of other people out there that need help too. And yeah, it's too bad that they don't just reach out when they need to. But yeah, that just shows we've got to go that extra step. Make sure that we don't forget anyone, leave anyone behind. I'm always reminding listeners, you know, up here, a little different up in the Northeast. We get snowed in pretty good sometimes. You know, we forget about the old folks and those that are indigent, can't get around as good. You know, we can't just forget about them. We're going to go and check on them once in a while.
Exactly.
Amen.
So
now, if I could add just a moment to that, you are aware that I'm currently running for a position at City Council here in the city of Sugar Land. And if there is one thing that I can accomplish, I really believe it'll be to bring our community into a feel of family, to where we're looking in on each other, we're checking to make sure they do have these essentials, and we can work around pride, but we have to know there's a need, and the only way to do that is to treat each other more like family. Community's great, but community sadly only comes together when they're under threat of storm or otherwise. And if we could start treating our neighbors more like family, I guarantee you we can get ahead of this sense of pride in our middle class. And because we need each other, we just sometimes don't know how to ask for help.
Good point. Yep.
Wow.
Agreed.
Now, so, you know, getting back to my question there is, I mean, would you say that the affected area is halfway back to where it should be? How would you measure? I mean, not being on the coast like that, I don't know how impactful a storm like that, you know, how long it takes a community to get back.
Well, if I may, and it's hard to explain what maybe I'm about to say, unless you do live in a region like ours that is at times plagued with these tropical storms and hurricanes. It is difficult to get back to 100%. So here's what I would say. Of the 78,000 plus homes that were flooded and affected by the high water, I'm going to hope and say that 85 to 90% of those have recovered well enough to be back in their homes. But there will always be a section, a percentage of that will not recover. Instead, they will move on, and those apartments may not open again, or those homes won't build high enough. And so to say we're ever 100% from Harvey, I think it would be a stretch. I would say we have touched most everyone that was harmed, but it doesn't mean they're recovered. And we may, for the next year or two, still be dealing with folks that were displaced. You know, it's a real challenge. We in the city of Houston, there's a large homeless population, and sadly, there may always be. And they were even displaced, as you can imagine, from the storm, but they didn't have the same sense of loss that a man that has a $180,000 home and a job and a car that has no insurance and lost the ability to live in his home.
Wow.
And now he's paying rent plus a house note trying to recover. It's a real challenge to do it quickly. But again, with family and community, we can do it. We just have to know the need.
Wow. Now, are people, I know up here there seems to be a little bit of a shift. They're actually getting prepared in advance. They're getting supplies and tucking them away, storage units, and working together in anticipation of another major event coming around the corner. Are you starting to see that at all in the area? Because you've been hit by a few things here recently.
Yeah, yeah. It's just that just it almost feels like an understatement when we say this because it's so painful when it hits. But I will say this: it is a human nature, and you know this, and you and your wife thankfully preach a sense of being prepared. But it is a human nature to not be prepared. I feel like most people are more concerned about their car note today, their food responsibilities today, their work today, and they really do seem, generally speaking, to be less concerned about tomorrow, or else they would save a little more money. They would put supplies back for 2-3 weeks. And we've proven that with Harvey, help is always coming within 3 or 4 weeks. So if people can just engage their own families for 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, help is coming.
Mm-hmm.
But sadly, very few of them are actively or appear to be actively seeking that sense of security through preparing.
Mm.
Interesting.
How would you characterize the readiness of local government and county government?
Now, I will say this, and now I'm very proud. Now, I want to be cautious when I say this because I do not have firsthand access to all the plans that have been made. But what Harvey did for us, Hurricane Harvey did for us, Harvey really woke us up as a city and county government. They have done a fabulous job. The not only volunteers, but all of the officials have really sat down now time and time again. In just the city of Sugarland alone, they have paid to have studies done regarding erosion and flooding. And I really feel like we have moved quickly to preventing the devastation in southwest Houston. I know that the state and county officials in Harris County and in Texas have done what they can to prepare with these reservoir new plans for flooding, and they're starting to dredge and doing all they can to prepare for the next one because, sadly, there will be a next one.
Yeah.
And to your question, they're doing all that they can right now, and I'm proud of them that they are not sitting on their hands.
Mm-hmm.
And otherwise, it would be equally bad after the next one. I mean, well, they just come and go every year, and I see the people there, God love them, up in Nebraska and all over in Florida and North Carolina, all the trips I went there delivering supplies, and I see them. Everyone has the same look on their face. It's a look of surprise. But to your question, if they would take that sense of surprise and turn it into energy and say, okay, where do we need levees? Or where do we need to elevate homes? Or, and just start preparing. Guess what? The next one won't be quite as bad. And, but again, tomorrow, for many people, they feel like it's not going to come. But our state and city has done a really good job responding with energy to prevent this from happening again.
Amen.
Well, that's good to hear. Not every community is like that, but that's definitely good to hear. Now, how far are you from the border? You're a border state. Is your area affected by what's going on there?
Well, no, we're not real close to the border. I do have friends that come and go from the border. Our troopers, our Department of Public Safety troopers, have literally put in months upon months, and maybe even you would say a year or more on our border trying to assist with, the improvements that are being made. But I will say there is a sense of improvement coming. There's still a problem. Look, America is still the greatest economy in the world. There will always be a desire for folks from other countries to want to come and naturally bring their families to benefit from that beautiful economy. They just need to learn in Congress on how to make that a more fluid and lawful process. And
right.
I really do believe, we absolutely 100% benefit from legal immigration.
Mm-hmm.
And I am sad that our process is so difficult.
Yeah. It's pretty broken.
Difficult in what way? In the way they handled the temporary visas, or just the immigration process in general?
Okay, so in general, and I know this from, as you can imagine, our current economy is greatly benefited by immigration and
Yeah.
let's just talk about Houston for a minute. I mean, without this immigration process through Houston, there really are, candidly, a lot of jobs that you know, Texas-born Americans, they probably don't want to do because they don't seem to show up to want them.
Mm-hmm.
So immigration is very important. So to your question, I have known many families, in fact, during this year, that are highly valuable to the workforce in Texas that have been sent home.
Mm-hmm.
They've been sent back to Mexico and otherwise, and they have a waiting period. And one of the young men that I know personally, he was sent home, and I believe he's got to go almost 2 years away from his family, who was allowed to stay. So, again, I'm not saying anything about separation in that case. I'm simply saying there is a need for immigration reform that will only come from our federal government behind our pressure. We, the people, have got to pressure our federal government to do a better job at what they are constitutionally called to do, and that is to manage our borders. And
Yes.
I don't feel like they're rushing to fix that problem right now.
Yeah,
Agreed.
they don't seem to be rushing to fix any problems,
No, sir,
especially
they're
ones they
not.
got jurisdiction over. They like to stick their nose in things that are none of their business and try to fix things that aren't broken. I like to think that enough civic pressure could be brought on our legislators to really start focusing in the right areas. Because here's one of the things that you don't hear about that often. And, you know, I've been on a kick around here. We've had a lot of problems with child abuse, sex offenders, things like that. And there's a lot of these people that are coming across the border. They're not on the radar, so they're ripe for the picking for these deviants that will kidnap women or children, and they're into prostitution and sex rings. You know, they're kind of a sitting duck because they're not on the radar. You know, there's nowhere to be found. So they're victimized more often than we like to talk about. We hear things now they go after the president, for example, because they're separating kids from their families, and these kids are sometimes missing and being abused. You know, this is something that happens every day because of the covert way that they're dealing with this. Granted, there's probably some improvements to be made in the immigration process, but I think the best way still is to knock on the front door. At least that gives you, the bright light of day. I actually feel bad for the kids that are being hurt, who are being brought along, by people that are, they're making it their first order of business to break a law here. But, wouldn't you agree that they're kind of targets when they're not on the radar like that?
Well, it's important that we're all held accountable. Whether you come from the southern border, northern border, or you ready for this? Whether you were born here, we all need to be held accountable. And to not be on the radar, absolutely. We can always do a better job. But let's all be honest with each other for a moment and say this, and I believe you'll agree with me. We all need to wake up to our community. We all need to look up for a moment from our laptops, our smartphones, and our televisions, and look in on our neighbors. And there's no reason that you and I, looking upon our own street, could not help identify these folks that need to be shined a light on, if I may.
Yeah.
So we need to all carry a sense of responsibility, not just our federal agencies, not just our patrol officers, we all should carry that, because human trafficking is this work today. And it occurs because, let's be candid again, are we really looking up at what's going on in our neighbor's home? I mean, are we really paying attention? Mostly not. Most people don't know their neighbor's name.
Yeah.
Some do. I do. I know all my neighbors well, but it's my personality. And
Yeah.
so I would say the easiest way to start to uncover, and that would be to get to know, literally, it sounds elementary, get to know your neighbor. And you would know what's going on in their homes. And if you'll look at all the recent stories where these bad players are uncovered, it is not uncommon that it was a neighbor that identified a problem. We need to wake up. These are our communities. These
Good
are our
point.
streets. These are our children. Because remember this, these folks that are being held here, not all of them, some of them, these that are being used in human trafficking, sometimes it's a sense of fear of life. And it's difficult for them to respond to a television ad to call your local police or call for help. It's difficult because they fear for their own lives. So we as neighbors need to go, you know what, something's not quite right across the street at Billy's house. Something doesn't feel right. And put A and B together and let your local agencies know and then allow them to look in on it. But remember this, we are a country of 240 million people? When you really break down how many are in law enforcement, and I'm talking state, federal, all the way around, if you were to take a number and let's just slap 12 million, we're just going to use a big number, but you start to realize out of 240 million, if the number were 12 million, they cannot be everywhere, every time, every day. We have got to. The 240 needs to wake up and pay attention to their neighbors.
Good point. Very good point.
You guys are doing a fabulous job of waking people up. And as soon as they wake up, they will see this behavior. And you cannot legislate that. You cannot. It's got to come naturally that you're concerned about your street.
Yeah.
You can't mandate it. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
Well, like the work that you're doing there right now, is you've been providing relief materials and things for a while. You must be making connections out there.
Oh goodness, yes. It is amazing the progress. And again, I'm going to go back and say something that some people think, oh, it sounds terrible. But Hurricane Harvey, just speaking to Harvey for a moment, really did a lot of positive things as well. Harvey woke us up to who our neighbor is, how they're hurting, what's going on in their homes. And so I'm going to say to your point, absolutely yes. We know people we never knew before Harvey, and we've held hands together, we've cried together, we've prayed together, we've served together, and we'll continue to do that as long as we have relationships. If we don't have relationships, it is really difficult for me to look in on how you're doing unless you and I allow that. So we've got to build relationships in our communities.
Yeah, and that's the way it used to be. Our communities
Praise
were
God.
very strong when we got most of what we needed in life as local as possible. We had good, strong connections, our communities. The same way, like you described it, that if there's something a little off, with your neighbor and things just are, patterns and things just aren't right. There was a day where we used to just go over and, reach over the fence and say howdy or just stop over and say hello.
Right. Remember the old-fashioned welcome wagon? I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't do that anymore, do we, sadly?
No.
Yeah,
No.
society has become suspicious of one another and would rather just, turn a blind eye when your neighbors are suffering. But I think you're exactly right. The best security is local security, and helping out your neighbor, what's the worst that could possibly happen is that you yourself might need help someday, and they would come to the rescue. Yeah.
So let me throw one interesting. This is something I've discovered recently, and I want to challenge you with a question.
Yes, sir.
When is the last time? And you don't have to be specific. In fact, you can handle this as rhetorical if you choose to. But when is the last time, for example, you walked a neighborhood that was not yours, and you knocked on a door, maybe for a candidate for office? And I'm gonna finish it once you have a moment to think about your answer. When's the last time you went to a stranger community or a strange community, knocked on a door on behalf of a cause? Now that's the question, and I can't wait to tell you where I'm going.
Boy, at every campaign season, we're out there. Usually we try to find a candidate that we like, and I've gotten mixed results, I'll tell you that. There's some people who just want to slam the door right in your face just because. They don't care what candidate that you represent. They don't want to hear about it, and they just don't want to be bothered. I've gotten just about every response a person could get. Some people happy to talk to you, and others that just don't want to be bothered.
So here's where I'm going with this question. And now that you said you've done it, you'll understand exactly.
Okay.
Even our technology, even the technology we have, and I'm going to use a brand not because it's bad, but because it's good. There's a door camera called a Ring. I'm just using that one for a single example. That Ring door camera, the doorbell camera, I want you to realize when you go knock doors nowadays, there was a time someone would open their door and you could get to know them. You could say, hey, I'm William, I'm from a local community, blah, blah, blah. But what's happened, if you'll remember this, the last time you knocked on doors, these camera devices have really become a barrier to relationships. So you'll ring the door. They may be at a restaurant or in their home. They'll speak through the doorbell. You never have a chance because of technology to develop a relationship with your own neighborhood.
Well, that's a good point.
So I would say there are a lot of barriers, and there was a time you didn't have that. But guess what? Today, barriers are going up all over the place that prevent us or hinder us from having a relationship in our neighborhood. So more than ever, you need to pay attention in a good way, in a very positive way, to your neighborhood, because if we all did that, can you imagine, not 240 million, let's just say 10% of 240 million paid attention to their neighborhood? Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Shine a light on good and evil would occur overnight.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah, everything that kind of gets legislated into place, it creates that divide, though. We've created a nanny state where, if we've got a problem, if there's a whim that we would like to see converted into a right, and then government forced to bring about that whim, people don't, they use the government hammer. To get their way. Government comes in my estimation, more times than not, they create a process that's cumbersome, that doesn't incentivize people to come together. It incentivizes them to stay home and detach, not be a part of it. It's like sticking with a voting issue. I get more doors slammed on my face, not because they flat out dislike the candidate I support and offer a reason why, but simply because they do not want anything to do with government at all anymore. There's something that's happened in the past years that so many people have just withdrawn, at least around here. I mean, how civically engaged are the people in your district?
Very low. The city of Sugar Land is about 120,000 people now. It's a beautiful city. And I'm going to brag for just a moment, and then I'm going to tell you a weakness we have. We are the most culturally diverse and even been awarded the most business diverse city in the county of Fort Bend County. And then proudly, I want to say this, as a deputy in Fort Bend County, here's a beautiful part. Fort Bend County was recently voted or ruled or decided to be the most diverse county in the nation. So
really?
With that said, this is a beautiful title to carry. We have all cultures. We have all everything. It's so beautiful. We all work together. We all come together, except one thing. We don't vote. I believe the mayor was decided by about 2% of our population when he won, and he's a wonderful guy, and he's taken the city in the correct direction. He's got a good team behind him. But what are the odds, okay? When you have just 2% or so of a population voting, oh, my goodness, the risk is high that the mayor could be good or could be not so good. Thankfully, we have a good mayor. And so I would say to this, our founding fathers, they set up I don't want to say a perfect system, but it's as perfect as we've got. I love it. But what it requires is an educated voter. Mm-hmm. And most of our voters today, I'm speaking generalizations here, most of our voters today have lost a sense of confidence or even justice in the whole process, from the election to accountability to justice. We the people have allowed this to happen, okay? So I don't want anyone blaming politicians. because we put politicians in place and we remove politicians from place. So if we've got legislation that's going in the wrong direction, for goodness sakes, our founding fathers said, fix it. Just fix it. There's a system in place to fix it. So for you and I or anyone to sit and complain, and I really mean this sincerely, to complain about politicians, and you can put a name of any, red or blue or however you want to, I don't care. If you're complaining about a politician, what's great is the system's in place to change it.
Yeah.
But sadly, few people engage it. That's the sad part.
And that's what we're seeing here. The demographics in the state of Massachusetts, we got a lot more Democrats than we do Republicans. You know, the Republicans are around a floundering 10% maybe, but the majority of voters are unenrolled. And they're unenrolled for a reason. Not a lot of them vote. And it's because they're just battered and abused out here. We got a monotypic legislature dominated by not just Democrats, but the progressive type that have pushed the Constitution aside. Now, speaking of the Constitution, Texas is usually known for being pretty Second Amendment friendly. We see a lot of red flag legislation, things being thrown around throughout the country, and even more so. What I like to see is going on now is some sheriffs are stepping up and refusing to follow unconstitutional federal mandates regarding gun control. How are the counties in your area, the sheriffs out there? Are they Second Amendment friendly?
Well, I will say, and I'm not going to even speak for our sheriff because those are his decisions to make, but I will say this locally. Our counties are Second Amendment friendly. Those of you that have ever watched our sheriff, his name's Troy Nels, he is absolutely solid. He's a good man. He's a veteran. And he has made clear our perspective on the Second Amendment, especially during Harvey. If you've not pulled up the video where Fox News was on a boat with him, and they were talking about, crime and potential crime related to theft in the flood areas, flood-affected areas. And my sheriff, and I'm proud to know him, I'm proud to call him friend, my sheriff was not afraid to say what he did when he said, remember this, the residents of Fort Bend County, we love the Second Amendment, and if you come into Fort Bend County and you pray on our victims of this storm, you may be going home in a bag. So that is our sheriff. He's a fine man. But know this, awesome. Texas, like any state, is susceptible to both party chaos. Oh, yeah. And that could be red or blue. The chaos that comes from any party instead of issues, if we all stood on issues and less on parties, we may find ourselves more in harmony than we can imagine. But when we stand on party, we lose the issues.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you keep a positive message, stay on issue in a campaign, rather than, we've been so horribly divided. The Democrats and the Republicans wage war on each other, and it's at the point right now where, if a Democrat says something, a Republican feels compelled to disagree and fight it. So even if the other political party comes up with a reasonable solution or a piece of legislation, it's so polarized now that the other party will just intuitively fight against it, and that makes it impossible for debate and dialogue to take place like it used to many, many years ago. We've lost that sense about our government a long time ago, but we've become very polarized, where we can't even have discussions anymore. People are demonized based on their party registration status. At least here it is, very, very deeply divided.
Let me respond to that. I don't know, and I'm assuming because of your stand on most issues, because I listen to you and pay attention. So I'm going to assume that you are a fan of history or study of history. And here's what I try to tell people currently that are not studied in history.
Mm-hmm.
This is nothing new. These political disagreements, these harsh lines between the parties, this is sadly nothing new. This is, again, human nature. And until the people say enough is enough and use the power that the Founding Fathers gave to them, until they wake up, I'm sorry to tell you, it's going to continue and continue.
Wow.
And you and I can turn blue in the face, struggling to see decisions made. But while the 240 million sleep, are wreaking havoc from both parties on a system that is beautiful. Our system is beautiful.
It is.
The system under the Constitution is. Our educational system, however, is evolved into an entity that is now pumping out, with every year that passes, another class of students that hate their country and basically begging for serfdom. We're behind the eight ball. We've got to unschool and deprogram our youth the moment they graduate. Parents aren't doing it. Parents are looking at our schools and daycares and after-school programs. These are the things that raise and babysit your kids, so the parents don't have to be burdened with the problem of parenthood. I don't know, but the kids are coming out of schools right now radicalized with things that I just couldn't believe. I mean, they don't know what bathroom to use when they graduate now, and they're coming out and voting. And there's a push starting to allow kids to vote at 16. I don't know that that's a good idea. But we've got a system that's churning out, not little young patriots, but little tiny socialists. They really do have a socialist mentality. They feel entitled. They feel everything is a right and nothing is earned. Responsibility, who needs personal responsibility when you have a government safety net? So I don't know. Our schools need a lot of reform. Up here, there's horrible things they're trying to push through in the state legislature in the realm of education. Hopefully Texas is a little different, but my observation is our kids are in trouble.
Well, let's do this again. I'm a reality guy, and I am very close. I'm going to say this. I'm closer to understanding this than I used to be. I hope that's a sign of maturity that I'm learning as I age. So I'm going to tell you a brief. This is like a 30-second thing. When I was a young police officer in Fort Bend County, I had been assigned to work at our school in the city of Stafford. Great school system. It's one of two municipal school districts. I want you to think about how big Texas is. It was one of two municipal school districts that is paid only by the city. I want you to put your mind around that. It is not. It does not take federal dollars. They do not. So I'm only telling you that to brag on that particular school system. They asked me to come in for a week or so and be the school resource officer for a very short time. And I was frustrated at the thought of dealing with all these difficult children at that time. But here's what I learned and what I have learned since then. As I worked in that school for that brief time, I learned something interesting. Less than 1% of those children are the ones causing the trouble. Far less than 1%. So here's what I'm going to say from that lesson. One, I fell in love with the ones that were not the problem. Okay, you just can't help. But in the face of trouble, all these young people, they're not affected by it. They learn well, they serve well, they respect well. So the vast majority, 99%, were not a problem. But I was judging the school, the education system, as there was 50% as a problem. It's not even close. So here's to your story. This is what I believe. I could be wrong by area, but I believe for the most part, there are far more good young men and women that are coming up through our education system because of good parents, good grandparents, because of something, maybe not the education system, but there are far more, and I'm even going to stretch it and say 85%. This is a guess only. 85% of the young people coming up today are absolutely fabulous, and they are malleable to the Constitution. They are excited about a future with a family, but then you've got this small amount that gets all the attention, that all we do is focus on this 5%, 10% that is wreaking havoc on a system. I don't know how to fix that except have the parents address their own problems, because the reality is you and I did not cause the problem in that family that would produce a desire for socialism. We may have been asleep while the education system injected that or allowed that, but at the end of the day, we can do what we can do, and we need to praise the young people that are okay and malleable. We need to lift them up and say, look at these young people in the face of chaos. They stand up and say no, and we need to tell their parents and grandparents, great work.
Amen.
Great work with your children.
Agreed.
That's what we need to do. And it's easy for all of us, and I'm not saying you are, but it's easy for all of us to look at a problem and think it's the majority. And I can assure you, the young men and women that I know, that we visit, it isn't even near 51% that are great. It's probably 80, 85% are fabulous, and they are sponges looking into their future saying, how can we make it better?
Yeah,
Nice.
I do have a great deal of faith in the ability of a young mind.
Yes.
I've seen some amazing things that very young people can do. I mean, ordinary people do extraordinary things all the time, and we don't push our youth enough. They are capable of learning a lot more than what we're giving to them. They're picking up indoctrination, and it shows. They're picking it up. They're learning it quickly, and it shows. So don't get me wrong there. I've got faith in our youth. They're at that rebellious age anyways, where if we can get through to them and inspire and excite them for freedom and liberty, the Constitution, those things that are where the power centers are.
Good point.
Boy, if you can get a kid wound up on that good and early, then you got something. So I'm optimistic. I'm going to stay, glass half full type of guy on this. But at the same time, I've got to recognize the critical importance of righting the ship with respect to education. Our kids are being dealt a raw hand here and done a disservice. They're capable of a lot more, and I say that we push them a little. I know they can do it.
Yeah.
Well, hey, think about what we've saddled them with, and I'm speaking to you and I. Think about what we've saddled these young people with. What do we have? $22 trillion in debt right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we're not even talking about the chaotic politics that we've saddled them with. Just in debt alone, we have saddled our future, our children, in a way that we should be ashamed of ourselves, that we have fallen asleep and allowed this to happen for so long, and it is not their fault. And we should praise, if I may, there is a hockey team up in Nebraska just absolutely working like they've never worked before to serve all the flood victims.
Wow.
And all I could do was praise them. Now, guess what? There were many that weren't there, but guess what? That hockey team got all our praise. That hockey team was elevated and held up, and we need to look into our local schools. We need to look into our universities and hold up these young men and women that absolutely crave improvement and crave life, the beauty of life.
Excellent
and they're
point.
doing it, guys. It's so exciting.
It is exciting. It is.
Do you think we're about to see a little bit of a shift here? For many, many years, we were told you've got to get your high school diploma so you can go on to college. You'll never get a good job without a college degree. And now you see in that things are kind of turning around. These degrees sometimes aren't worth the paper they're printed on. And trade
schools.
tradesmen are
Yeah.
starting to become a little bit more popular again. 'Cause I come from a line of machinists, and this was all exported out of this country through free trade deals. But I see the economic environment starting to change a little bit. Or do you see anything similar there in your area?
Oh, absolutely. We have trade schools coming up, technical schools that are coming up. We've got a new one out in Fort Bend County. It's beautiful. Here's what I'd say. I was honored. I was blessed enough to work with it's actually the second largest home service company in the nation. As their sales manager in Houston, we generated $52 million a year in home services. And I want you guys to think about this for a minute. We had air conditioning technicians that were highly professional, that did not have a college degree, that were making well over $130,000 a year.
Wow!
Now you put your mind around that. Here is a high school educated, a young man and women that are making over $100,000 a year because they are professionals in demand. I don't care how automated your technologies are in the future. When your commode doesn't work, you need a plumber.
That's right.
And when your air conditioner stops cooling in Houston and the humidity feels like it's 800%, trust me, you want an air conditioning technician. And so recently, a Democrat candidate for 2020, I wish I could think of his last name. He's an Asian American. He was interviewed, and to your point, or to your question, you're going to love his response. He said, I feel we have an obligation to notify the 3.5 million truck drivers that we have in America that their long-haul driving job is most under threat of being replaced right now by automated technologies.
Oh, no.
And we need to assist them now. Not when it happens. We need to start right now with these truck drivers and teach them how to transition from sitting behind a steering wheel to another career, because this automated technology, he said, is not going to stop.
It's funny you bring that
point.
up. I was recently going through legislation here in Massachusetts, and I did a couple of different variants of searches. But one of the things that came up is directly related to what you just said, and it kind of surprised me, as I didn't think we were quite there yet. Now I've seen some prototypes and real sci-fi type things, but maybe we're closer than I thought. But it had to do with driverless vehicles.
Yes.
And it's pretty much what you just described as truck drivers being replaced by automation. They must be preparing to put these vehicles on the road without drivers, using sensors all over the place. And they've got the sensors out there right now. But, man, I don't know if there's anything they won't try to automate and gain control over. I don't know if I like that idea.
I'm not positive what it was. Okay. So when you get in that Honda or whatever brand it is, I don't care, these later vehicles, they're following technology alone in cruise control. You can set, you want 3, 4, or 5 vehicle distance between the vehicle in front of you. And if that vehicle slows, so will your cruise control maintain that distance. Here's my point. It's already here. That technology is already here.
Yeah.
It's in our cars and trucks. It's just kind of disguised right now. And sadly, if we don't assist, in this case, truck drivers to transition, where are they going to be left? Like a coal mine worker, they're going to be left out when the coal mines close.
Yeah,
and that Democrat, God love him for that comment, because he probably woke up a lot of men and women like me that thought, wow, it is near, and we need to be thinking aggressively so that these great Americans are not without work as these transitions happen over the next 5, 10 years, whatever it takes.
Excellent point.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the trucking industry took quite a hit there. You think back a few years when fuel prices got up around $5 a gallon or even higher for diesel. that took out a lot of the small guys. I can't tell you how many truck drivers I know. You know, they were just small businesses, 1 or 2 trucks, and they couldn't do it. They could not make their bills, and they sold out. A little bit of monopolizing started to take place as the bigger guys bought out the little guys. But there was a lot of them that lost their profession back then. I don't know how many got back into it, but they run a kind of a razor's edge there sometimes, the private truckers.
Well, these truck drivers, and we're speaking to them, so I'm going to speak directly to them right now. These men and women in the trucking industry, they literally move America. And I don't care what you think.
Yeah.
If you don't have truckers, I'm just telling you now, you don't have groceries. You don't have anything.
That's right.
You have nothing. If you're into windmills and all that, that's great. But remember this: the windmills are transported to their locations by truckers.
Yep.
Excellent.
And all I'm saying
point.
is, and that Democrat candidate could not have said that better. Doesn't mean I'm a Democrat. I'm just saying that was well said, and it is necessary to your question about trades. If these men and women were pointed at, because let's be honest with each other, college isn't for everyone, and it becomes a debt, almost a debt ring, like an anchor around somebody's neck. They cannot shake loose that debt for something they're not even pursuing anymore. And I would rather them go to a trade school and earn great money because they're needed.
Yeah, yeah.
I agree. Absolutely do. Yeah.
What's
Excellent
point. Your district? Describe your district to me. How do you feel going into this campaign? Is this your first attempt at running for office?
Well, I'm going to say something that probably you've never heard, and I sadly you've never heard. I'm going to say something you probably never heard in a campaign. District 4 in Sugar Land is going to win either way. The incumbent there now, her name is Carol. She is a fabulous person. She is fabulous. She's a believer. I'm a believer.
Good.
We are people that love our community, period, okay? I'm simply a little louder with a higher level of energy, and my communities would probably hear from me a little more often and maybe a little more aggressively. So with that said, look, I feel very positive about the campaign, but either way this goes, you know what? We all have an obligation to serve our communities, especially, you know what? If you're a good man or woman with good ideas, run for office. Or at least get behind men and women that are running for office, because I'll tell you, it's stressful, it's expensive, it's time-consuming, and I think my odds are great, but at the end of the day, District 4 wins, period.
Oh,
well, that's good. You don't hear that too often where someone's running for, usually it's because they've got a legislator that just got to go. In this case, it looks like I said, you're going to win each way. Are you, is this like your first campaign? I apologize for not, being totally familiar.
It is. No. This is my first political run for office.
Wow.
And it's extremely exciting.
Yeah.
To say it on one end, but let's also be honest. My priority to service seems to interrupt my campaign because I've spent the last 3 or 4 days pursuing supplies or delivering supplies in Nebraska. But I have wonderful volunteers,
nice.
And they are doing everything that needs to be done. So, you know what? I'm gonna brag for a minute on my motto or my slogan for the campaign, and I love it. It is Sugarland life in Sugarland is sweet, but it's sweeter when we live together, work together, and serve together.
Nice.
And that's what I'm driving our community to through my actions, not my words. Through my actions, I'm tightening up our community into that family, and I really think it's. I think people want to be a part of something bigger than them, and Sugarland is already sweet. Okay, we just want to make it a little bit sweeter.
All right.
And so we're real excited about it. And yes, it's my first campaign, and win or lose, I have met the most amazing people, and it's a positive campaign. And I really believe our founding fathers would be honored by how we're running this campaign in Texas.
Well, we wish you the best with that. I have another question
you.
for you.
Yes.
The people in Fremont, Nebraska, the farmers, what's the biggest need right now?
Well, I'm gonna tell you, you're gonna crack up that I'm actually prepared for that question.
All right.
Give me 1 second, and I'm gonna actually tell you because he gave me a list. One moment, and I just the absolute most adorable. If I can use that word, his name is Bill Waters. He's a rancher that's taking in rescue horses right now, because so many of them have been standing in this water for 4 or 5 days or more, and they couldn't get them out. So he's taking them in. So on video, and if you'll watch my last video from yesterday, it says, Nebraska still needs our help.
Yep.
You'll get to see him speak this list. And so here's what I'm going to narrow it down to this.
All right.
That water came in and took out many of their fence lines.
Oh,
So
yeah.
they're asking for things related to fencing, T-posts, wooden fence posts, barbed wire. Very simple request. None of the items on this list are even food, because they have been blessed so recently with people like from Texas and all over delivering them food. But what they don't have is a way to put their fences back up to bring their livestock back. It's been a real nightmare for the ranchers and the farmers. But once again, they are the heartbeat of America, and they come together like nobody else. It's beautiful to watch.
Wow.
Well, that's encouraging to hear. People
Praise
a lot of
God.
times forget about the animals.
Right.
There's they're important too. As someone who's got a dog, I can tell you they're part of the family. People that are horsing, ranchers, whatever, this is their livelihood. And in a disaster situation,
right.
sometimes it's too easy to forget about that. So
Well, you made a great point, and I'm not asking you to go see the picture, but there is a picture from Nebraska, and I want you, any one of us, anybody listening or speaking here, I want you to imagine you stand in water for 5 days. Just stand in water up to your waist for 5 days. What will that do to your skin, your tissue? Yeah. And that is what's happened to many of these animals. And there's a picture floating around, I think I even had it, that is difficult to look at because of the condition these poor animals are in, because they can't get them out.
Yeah, hoof rot and all kinds of hoof-related diseases come about when their feet are just damp, let alone standing in water like that. They soften, you have infections, all kinds of bad things start to take place.
Oh, jeepers.
Wow.
Yeah.
So are people coming through, your donations and the people that are feeding materials in there? Are they covering all these areas? Is there anything?
Let me tell you, it is beautiful. Now, it was a 2,000-mile trip. I'm not done yet. I'm almost home. But it was a 2,000-mile trip, and I want to tell you something happily. There were people from Oregon. There were people from everywhere that came to help. It's absolutely beautiful, and I did a video of our arrival so people would feel the energy that is there. And I try to explain to people, especially after Katrina and Harvey and Michael and Florence and Rita and all these storms I go to, there's one key element we have to always deliver, and that is a sense of hope, a sense of tomorrow. It may be tough today, but if they'll hang in there, here's America. You ready? If they'll hang in there long enough, America comes. The American people, believe it or not, the media doesn't want to tell you this, but the American people are not racist. American people are not hateful towards other religions.
That's right.
There is a small sect of people that are so wayward that they cannot see their neighbors. But 99% of America, in my opinion, because I've traveled from coast to coast, I'm telling you now, 99% don't see anything.
Nice.
They see an American in need, and they have proven time and time again, like you guys did in Harvey, that they will come.
Praise
It
God.
is beautiful.
Praise God.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep, it's
Amen.
beautiful.
Ah, sweet.
Now, what's your your election is what in May? You said, right?
May 4th is the election in District 4 of Sugar Land.
Yep.
It's an off election, if I may. So there's no big issues. So there's going to be a very low turnout unless the communities are interested. Just to your earlier point, if they're not interested in being a part of it, you know what? They'll elect who they have elected in the past. And you know what? In our District 4 case, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. She's a good person. If they're looking for louder representation in a positive way, and you can tell how positive my life is. If they're looking for that in our district, hey, you know what? I'll be the city council person. If they want, Carol has. I'm excited for them. Hey, she's a good person.
Yeah.
I won't be offended. I'm doing what our founding fathers said to do, and that is to serve our communities, and we're doing it.
Nice.
Well,
And
you're
we're
a
doing
good
it
guy.
all over Fort Bend County.
You're a good guy. That's for sure.
We certainly do wish you luck in your election, but if things don't
Thank
go
you.
the way you want, we can always make room for you up here. We could use a good constitutional sheriff up here in the Commonwealth.
Hey, you guys have a lot of waking up to do, and you have a lot of undoing to
Oh,
do.
yeah.
You guys, you guys. It's almost. It seems like sometimes a big old boa constrictor's got a part of our country, and it's
Wow.
just squeezing that thing. And so you guys have got a lot of undoing to do.
Good
Texas
description.
Is,
Yeah.
Texas is like any state.
Yeah.
We have a change in population, and you know what? It's okay. We just got to stand up and wake up and educate and be a good neighbor, and it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
You know what? You are one positive man. I love to hear that. I love to see that. We follow you. You're an inspiration,
Yeah.
Deputy Sheriff. you
Well,
are.
thank you.
Yeah, you
You're
are an
welcome.
example to your colleagues for sure. I look around and see the activity every once in a while of other sheriffs, deputy sheriffs, departments. The political figures, and you rise above. You've done a lot of hard work, and it's not a flash in the pan. We met there a couple of years ago, and I got to tell you, I don't think a week has gone by where I haven't seen one of your live streams where you are out providing help to people you don't even know.
Yeah, it's nice to watch.
So, by the way, thank you for that. My grandfather would be proud because he had a lot to do with who I am today to begin
Aw.
with. But
Nice.
he passed away in '88, so I'm still trying to live up to his amazing bar. Anyhow, I don't want to digress, but I want to say this, and it's important because a man told me this not too long ago. I was so frustrated I couldn't find volunteers at a upcoming event. I was so frustrated, and this man, again, at 50, I'm learning to listen, and he said something so beautiful, and I want to apply this to your lives. He said, William, your level of service, okay, your level of service is built into your DNA. The creator himself built that into your DNA. Stop expecting other people to have that level of DNA. Instead, change your methods and bring them on with you. But don't expect so much from other people.
Yeah, lead by example, and everyone's got the thing they're passionate about, and if you allow that to blossom on its own, let people do what they do best. They'll find their niche, and when they do, you feed that.
It is a gift.
Yep, praise goes a
That's
long
it.
way.
And so my pastor said something one day that you can apply to work, personal, anywhere. And I love this. I was frustrated with a group of people again, and I'll never forget my pastor said, William, never beat the sheep. And I thought about that for a minute,
Yeah.
and then a day went by and a week went by, and it dawned on me what he was saying. People are more like sheep than you think, and if you will learn to lead them differently, they will come.
Nice.
But never beat the sheep, because then they're fearful of you. You always learn a different way to lead.
What a good reminder. I like that.
No.
Right.
Wow.
I loved it, and it's helped me in my life.
Yeah, praise goes a long way. We're often
Yes.
quick to jump on folks for things, but a little praise does go a long way. And you run into these individuals in life sometimes where no amount of talking or reasoning is going to prevail, and
Right.
you've got to say your piece and let it go. It'll either sink in
Exactly.
eventually. You can waste a lot of time trying to convert one mind that's just unwilling to budge, or you can go on and actually get through to a dozen more. So I try to learn what my limits are and when to stop, because I do try to convince people, get them on board. But there's some that just are so hardened in their ways. You got to wish them the best and move along.
Yeah, but you never know when you never know when that seed is going to sprout.
Yeah.
You know.
Right. And so let's go back to the root. And
Yeah.
it's this. If we will love more, okay, if we will simply love more, I got to tell you, people like it. If we want to argue and fight more, people don't really like that. So we need to simply love more. And that's what I try to do with everything I do. They may disagree with me wholehearted on some of my conservative stances, but you know what? I still love them.
Yep.
And it gets frustrating for them when someone's trying to love on them, in conversation and in service. It's really difficult to hold a grudge against somebody that's really
You're
trying
right.
to show you love.
Yeah.
And if we will all embrace that in a positive, strong way, guess what, guys? This will come out well.
Mm-hmm.
But if we want to get down in the gutter, and it's going to go well.
Yep.
Agreed.
Yeah. Once
Yeah,
the
just
wall goes up, there's no more dialogue.
Right.
There's no convincing. So if you attack and that defensive wall goes up, you've lost. You're not going to progress anymore. So we got to find out and acknowledge where that limit is. Plant your seed, and you never know. I've had people come back to me, oh boy, 3, 4, 5, 6 years later, and say, you know what, I understand now. I look at something a little bit, or I've seen that happen in my community. Tell me more.
Sure.
So yeah, try to leave it on a good standing, non confrontational, and remain approachable. That's all you can do. And again, lead by example. If you know a better way and you take a civil march forward and pursue that, and you are successful, they'll come along.
So I'm going to share with you a sales
Nice.
line, and I think you'll enjoy this because you just brought it up. This is your fault that it popped up, but it works. Here we go. If you have a customer on the other side of a brick wall, okay, let's just say it's a little 4-foot brick wall. They're on the other side. Is it better for you to climb over the wall to them, or is it better for them to climb over the wall to you? What is the best approach?
Pull them over the
I'm gonna
wall
tell-
on my side.
I'm going to tell you. You ready? You
Yeah.
allow the customer come to you, and here's why. In that conversation you're having, you're trying to convince someone it's not going well. You need to realize what you're trying to do is crawl over their wall, and you never want to do that. You never want to do that. You want them to come to you. Otherwise, you're the trespasser. You're the one that
good
is
point.
too aggressive. You need to allow them to come to your side. And fighting with people over issues, I'm going to be candid, really doesn't do any good at all.
Yeah.
If you love on them, they literally are disarmed,
Yeah.
and sooner or later they'll climb over that wall.
That's a great visual.
No, what are your, every candidate has, a couple, 2, 3, 4 primary issues that they like to, put out front as a campaign message. What are yours?
Okay, so I've surveyed, I would say a broad spectrum of our District 4. And here's the good news. Most of them are mainly just concerned about, you ready, mobility. That's sort of a sad line nowadays, but here's the beauty of it. we are such a solid city right now. We have such a solid leadership right now that people don't worry about crime because our crime levels have dropped so dramatically. You ready for this? We're growing so fastly internally that it's difficult some days, to get off your block because there's so many cars. And so we're working on some of our transportation issues, and we're widening streets and things like that. So that's sort of the first issue that people have on their mind every time I talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
The second issue is, will the flooding affect us again in the near future? Well, no one knows, right? So what we do is we produce the plans that great men and women have already made and they have in hand, and we simply communicate those plans to our community, and it sets them at ease, at least slightly. And as they see the changes occur, there's less and less concern or fear. So the third thing, you're going to love the third thing that comes up most, and I think it's I don't want to use the term cute because it seems like I'm dismissing it, but I have a large group in District 4 that loves riding their bicycles. Okay, you probably hadn't heard a politician bring this up. They love riding their bicycles, and they can't do that on our city streets because we're not set up for it, all right? There are some communities in Arkansas that are set up for it. European, we're not set up for it. These are concerns people have that we want to talk about. Now, I want to talk to you for a moment about taxes.
Now, before you go off that subject, are these requests coming from individuals, or are they coming to you from organizations and land trusts and special interest groups, nonprofits, things like that? Who are you hearing from about the lack of bicycle access?
Mainly from our voters. Candidly, I am hearing mainly from our voters. I will tell you that I've been approached by some special interests, but you already know my personality, I hope, and they are dismissed quickly. My concern is not special interest as a council person. My concern is representing the District 4, in this case, the voters / property owners in District 4. I'm not here to represent special interests. I'm not here to represent developers. I'm here to find out what our people want, and our people are speaking clearly. They love, you ready? They love their city services. They are top of the line. They are award-winning. They are comfortable with our current tax rate, which is equivalent to fourth lowest in the state of Texas at 120,000 people in a city. They are pleased with our taxes. They don't want them to go up. They want them to stay there or go down. And so, response to special interests, we have time for them in any way. In any way. Now, I will tell you, I do have a soft spot. You brought it up earlier. I love animals. I'm a Genesis 3 guy. We are called to manage animals. We were put above them. And when we are irresponsible with our animals, whether it's a dog, a cat, a cow, a horse, when we're irresponsible, shame on us. We need to do a better job because we're called to do a good job. So to that point, special interests have no place in my life, and they're learning that quickly.
Yeah, and it's a hard thing to avoid. I've been a department head in my town for about 15 years, and what I see is less pressure from the individual and more from the special interests. They call them stakeholders. You see, they're put in place now to take the place of your average citizen to speak on behalf of their environmental needs, their economic needs, their bicycling needs. And I'm very careful to, as you pointed out, you kind of push them to the side. They're in there. They have got a mission. They want what they want. And as a stakeholder, they're only speaking for a very finite number of extreme environmentalists, socialists from an economic point of view. So I am highly suspect of these stakeholders. They often do not actually represent the sentiments of those they're supposed to be stakeholders for.
Well, and I'm certain that occurs at some level. I am uncertain of how much pressure someone at the city council level even of a city of 120,000 people. I'm not saying they don't exist at that high level pressure, but I'm self-funding my campaign. And what makes that beautiful is I don't need their money. I don't need their time. I am here to represent the people, not special interests, period. And they're learning that quickly. So, look, we're already in great shape. I love to keep going back to that. We've got great leaders right now. And to make something seem a little different than maybe some communities, it is not just city council making decisions on plans and ideas. We have full volunteer committees that have come in for years now, and they commit their professional abilities, and they volunteer their time on behalf of the city, and they study plans, they make plans, and those plans are later submitted before the mayor and city council. And guess what? Good plans are laid out every day, and I'm so proud to be a part of it.
Well, that's good. Well, you said that you're working towards widening the streets out there to relieve traffic congestion, and that's good to hear because a lot of the stakeholders for regional planning are doing the exact opposite. They put they call them traffic calming measures, the roundabouts, bicycle lanes, things like that, that is causing a bottleneck in traffic. They're trying to make personal travel as miserable as possible to get you out of your personal car and into public transportation. So to hear that you're widening your streets when many of the towns and communities around here are doing the exact opposite, they're getting narrower, increasing the volume and the traffic congestion, you appear to have an opportunity to go the other way. That's good to hear.
Well, remember this. We represent the people of Sugar Land, and I'm speaking on behalf of generic leadership in Fort Bend County. We represent the people here. And don't tell anybody. You like that statement? Don't tell anybody. But in these road widening projects that we have, we do end up cutting trees down. Okay, we save what we can because we believe it's necessary for our environment. But we also believe by saving trees, it's beautiful for our community. But at the end of the day, the needs of the people are first.
Yeah.
Now,
Amen.
we will not cause harm. We will not cause harm intentionally to unnecessary needs, if I may. So I am so proud to be a part of a community with strong leaders that stand for the people.
Yeah. Well, that's
Excellent.
That's a rarity these days, Mr. Ferguson. I'll tell you. And I got to imagine you must really have the committed support of a lot of people around you, as you've been so busy, as I said. That doesn't go unnoticed, and I hope your campaign team continues to grow. I'm really hoping the best there for you down there, and I'm sure no matter what you do, the people in your area are very lucky to have you. I can tell you that.
Oh, yes.
Well, and I am equal, and thank you for that. But I am equally lucky to have them.
Oh,
and I'm going to say this in response to the unknown. I'm going to say this to you: this will go the way God wants it, and I'm okay with that.
Correct. Yep.
Yep.
You know, you just go with the way it goes. We do what is right. We stand on our principles, and it's okay. However it turns out, it's okay. We just keep loving on each other, and next thing you know, hey, it's all okay. We're good.
Yeah, I agree with that, man. Love gets you a long way in this world, and this is and this
You
world
don't
needs
forget
it.
that.
Yeah, absolutely,
right.
for sure. Now, do you have a website or anything folks can go check out and learn a little bit more about you?
They can always look me up at Ferguson for Sugarland, Ferguson for FOR, Sugarland.com. Very simple site there. Just give you some brief information on Facebook, Ferguson for Sugarland. You can see my recent video that we did, sort of introducing me to my community for the first time to some people.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that's going to kind of kick up a gear here in the next week, and it's going to kick up another gear, and we're going to continue to push until May 4th. And like I said, the way it goes, but either way, District 4 wins.
All right.
That's good to hear, and you're going to have to check back in with us there after the election, hopefully, to give us some good news. Some of the guests here in the live chat noticed the Lavoie hat you were wearing. I picked a picture of you wearing a tan Lavoie hat, and you got a lot of Lavoie fans here. And you.
Well, you know I love Lavoie. I love his family. I wish everybody knew my story with that family. I dearly, dearly respect them.
Yeah.
I am proud to say the hat you wear, if I may, which, again, I did it again, by the way. I have a package for you at the house. But the hat you wear, that round white Lavoie circle with the LV in the center of it, that I designed years ago for
Wow.
Jeanette and her family.
Wow.
I had fallen in love with the family, and I'll give you the brief story. It'll take like 45 seconds.
Okay.
I had like many Americans watched that story unfold
Yeah.
in Oregon, and I watched what happened to Lavoie in the
Yeah.
snow.
Yeah.
And I looked at my wife. I said, I can't sit still. I booked a flight to Vegas. I got a rental car in Vegas. I drove up to Utah, and I was there in Caleb at his funeral. And I stood at his open casket, and I heard a lady to my right say, "That's the guy from Texas." And that lady turned out to be Jeanette Finicum and his family. The girls were there, everyone. And I got to cry with them, and I got to know them. And Jeanette, she'll be back at our home this next month. We're having an event here in Sugar Land for her to continue to share her story.
Oh,
And
amen.
I absolutely adore that family.
Yeah.
And I don't think that any of us can ever do enough to show our respect to a family that has not shown bitterness to a system that claimed the life of Lavoie.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
I couldn't agree with
they
you.
are fabulous people.
They have
Yeah, they
rised above. I would. I know I couldn't do that. You hit the nail on the head. They really, they're not a hateful family, and that's
No.
part of what makes it so sad. Is that they lost their.
Patriarch.
Yeah, they lost the head of their family, and he really was just someone that didn't want to harm another soul in the world.
Right.
And
Right.
Great.
And so that people that may be new to the story, I'm sure many of them are familiar with the story, but those of you that have not seen it, on my Facebook, I was blessed to transport two of his daughters and one of his grandchildren to the site where he was killed in Oregon. And that story is still up on my Facebook. And I want to say, please forgive my memory, but we went up there January 26th or 7th. It was the anniversary, and we had an event, and it was in 2017 because he was killed in 2016. But I want you guys to see how beautiful his children were in the video that they allowed me to take, because I escorted them from Portland and back. And I just can't tell you how much I love that family.
Yeah, we're looking forward to having Jeanette back out here. We had her last fall. She came out for a little bit to do her part one of the series that they're doing.
Yes.
So we're looking forward to having Jeanette and the family out here again. We're not going to let that issue die.
Never.
This is something
Never.
people have got to understand what happened, the players involved. Government exceedance was at record levels. So we're not going to let this die. We don't want to see this type of stuff happen anymore.
Right.
For certain, to lose Lavoie in vain, it's just
Sure.
not going to happen. So I'm glad
Sure.
you're staying close with the family out there. They absolutely deserve our support. So thank you for that. We've
Yes.
got to get rolling here.
Yes.
Your website again is Ferguson
for Sugarland.
Ferguson for Sugarland. I'll get that link up in the show notes afterwards, and make sure that travels along with you. Sheriff Ferguson, thank you so much for coming on the show and talking with us a little bit. It's always a pleasure to hear what you got going on, and we're sending prayers your way for this election.
Thank you, kind sir. Yes.
You guys are wonderful. You just keep up the love. That's all we need, and America will continue to heal.
Excellent.
Amen.
I'm looking forward to the day we get to shake hands and actually meet in person. I sense that's coming
no,
up.
no. I'm going to hug you, and I'm going to give you a haircut.
You're not the only one that
Good luck.
wants me to cut that hair.
Good luck. Good luck.
All right, bye. Good night, guys.
All right, thank
Okay.
you so much, sir.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
What a great guy. I really enjoy every time we
Yeah,
have a
amen.
discussion. His heart's really in the right place, and the folks there in Texas are very, very fortunate to have
Oh, they
someone
sure are.
who is committed like that.
They sure
So,
are.
yeah, we're gonna. We can't believe we burned through 2 hours already. Huh?
Wow, it went by quickly.
Yeah, it did. I want to thank everyone for tuning in this week. Always super nice to have a good room full of people.
Amen.
Don't forget, hit the old PayPal account.
You got to get these sexy little
Yeah,
briefs.
look at that. Autographed by
Sexy
Sheriff
briefs.
Joe.
Wink, wink, wink.
Your donations will help get us to the Red Pill Expo and great things like that, and bring some wonderful interviews for the rest of this year on Red Pill Politics.
All for you.
Every Sunday.
All for you.
So thank you
Yeah.
for that. The things coming up in our not too distant future is Camp Constitution, as I said. That's right around the corner.
Yeah, but that's in August.
Yeah, well,
No, July to August.
it's going to come up pretty quick nonetheless. So
Correct.
make sure you stay involved with that.
Flag Day 2A rally, June 15th.
June 15th, Flag
Saturday,
Day 2A rally.
Saturday, June 15th.
Yep,
Amen.
Red Pill Expo. That's coming up
Stay tuned.
June 7th to the 9th.
Yep.
Be looking to have a lot of fun there.
A lot of stuff.
Absolutely and positively.
That's cute. I
Yeah,
like
hey,
that.
thank you all so very much for tuning in, sharing the show. Is that's what it takes, man. They're filtering the heck out of us here. So
They are.
anytime you can help us get the word out, we certainly do appreciate it. So thank you very much. Fly your flags high. Keep your powder dry. Love each other out there.
Patriots.
I've got that lightning inside me, son of a god. I'm like a titan that's rising, oh just you watch. I'm stepping into fate, there is no time to waste. I've got that lightning inside me, this is how legends are made. This is how legends are made. This is how legends are made. I'm cranking up on the throttle, victory is mine. Show you the harder the battle, harder I fight. I've come too far to quit. Step back, I'm going in. I'm cranking up on the throttle. This is how